discussion at the appropriate time on the appropriate bill and through the appropriate committees of jurisdiction. In this regard, I yield to my ranking member, Mr. Pastor of Arizona, for the time that he may wish to consume.
I want to thank the chairman for recognizing and providing time and ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
This amendment would prevent FERC from carrying out its statutory authority. The term enforce would impact oversight of existing and operating liquefied natural gas facilities. This amendment appears to prohibit FERC from approving environmental or safety-related amendments to existing liquefied natural gas facilities. This amendment will impact both import and export proposals in addition to almost any new facility at existing plants. While I understand the gentleman has concerns in his district, the language would impact a much broader constituency. And for that purpose and for that reason, I oppose this amendment and urge my colleagues to join me. And I yield back my time.
The gentleman from Oregon.
I yield to the gentleman from Massachusetts such time as he may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman. On September 11, 2001, when Richard Clark, George Bush's terrorism czar, was asked to sit in the control room to take over the response on 9/11, the first call he made was to the port of the city of Boston to shut down the port because of the LNG facility in Everett, Massachusetts, in my district. That was the first thought in his mind. And why was that so? Because the al-Qaeda had actually come in from Algeria, jumping off of those ships in Boston Harbor, in Everett, Massachusetts, in my district. Now, we've had a tremendous amount of development of natural gas in the Marcellus Shale formation and all across the country, in addition of 30% to the natural gas reserves of our country over the last 4 years. Now, if a state determines that the terrorism threat is so great that they do not want an LNG facility in the middle of their most densely populated area, it should not be the right of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to override the public safety decision made by the state and local police that it is too great of a danger. That is why the Wu Amendment is correct. We have a bonanza of natural gas domestically. If a state decides they can get it from our own people rather than overseas, it is not up to the FERC to make that decision if they're going to override the national security, the safety consideration of that community in making that decision. I urge and I vote on the Wu Amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I urge and I vote on this amendment. Yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The
I
gentleman
believe
from
I haven't yielded back, but I urge a no vote. This is a proposition that ought to be discussed by the authorizers, should not be considered within the limits of this continuing resolution. I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Oregon. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Ask for a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Oregon will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts rise?
I rise to offer an amendment pre-printed in the congressional record and designated as Amendment Number 27.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment Number 27, printed in the congressional record, offered by Mr. Markey of Massachusetts.
Pursuant to the order of the House on February 17, 2011, the gentleman from Massachusetts and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair.
Mr. Chairman, it's on this amendment. It's 20 minutes, 10 minutes on each side.
Pursuant to the order of the House on February 17, 2011, the gentleman from Massachusetts and a member opposed will each control 10 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Massachusetts.
I thank the chair. Mr. Chairman, we all agree that we have to do some serious work to reduce the deficit. But we need to start by first eliminating unnecessary taxpayer subsidies to big oil companies. I'm going to finish the rest of this opening statement in the well.
Bring in the charts.
As a result of a poorly drafted law passed by the Republican Congress in 1995, oil companies are now drilling for free on public lands offshore in the Gulf of Mexico. The Government Accountability Office projects that the American people currently stand to lose as much as $53 billion in royalty payments over the life of these leases. And according to a brand new study, that's as much as $1.5 billion just this year. And with oil prices at $90 a barrel, we do not have to be allowing them to drill on public lands for free and taking all of the profit for themselves and giving nothing back to the American taxpayer. This amendment is very simple. It says to these companies, we will allow you to continue to drill and not even pay any royalties, but we're not going to give you an opportunity to bid on any new leases on public lands in our country. So if you renegotiate so that you're paying your fair share back to the American taxpayer, then fine, you can drill in the future. But we need that $53 billion that they owe in royalties, in taxes, to be put towards reducing the federal deficit. That's what this debate should be all about. Where do we go to find where the waste is in our federal government? The oil companies drilling for free, paying nothing to the taxpayers while reaping windfall profits is absolutely something that we should not tolerate. This amendment passed in 2006 on the House floor. This amendment passed as part of the BP response bill last year. This amendment passes over and over again with significant Republican support, 60 votes, just 5 years ago. In order to reclaim this money, I urge and I vote and reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time.
Mr. Chairman.
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Claim time in opposition.
The gentleman is recognized for 10 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, contrary to what the gentleman from Massachusetts just said, while this happened in 1995, it was not the Republican Congress, it was the Clinton administration, and a result of the oil leases that were made under the Department of Interior at that time and the Clinton administration. If this amendment passed, companies with existing Deepwater Royalty Relief Act leases would be required to renegotiate lease terms with DOI to include price thresholds before getting new leases. Companies with Deepwater Royalty Relief Act leases have been successful multiple times in court challenging Interior's authority to include price threshold in the lease agreements. DOI has lost at the District Court, the Appellate Court, and the Supreme Court. The Secretary does not have the authority to include price thresholds on these leases. The problem stems from language included in the Deepwater Royalty Relief Act itself and the regulations promulgated to implement the Act that did not address or require Interior to include price thresholds in the Deepwater Royalty Relief Act leases. In addition, forcing companies to renegotiate the leases would be a violation of contract law and would be challenged in court. This would only cost us millions of dollars more. This would hinder our leasing ability, reducing revenues to the federal government, not increasing revenues to the government, as it limits the pool of potential leases. And I would reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you. I yield 1.5 minutes to the ranking member of the Interior Appropriations Subcommittee, Mr. Moran.
The gentleman is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we voted to subsidize the cotton industry, NASCAR, agribusiness, you name it, we vote to subsidize them. But now we have an opportunity to correct the most egregious abuse of the federal taxpayer. $53 billion of oil that belongs to all American taxpayers is basically being given away. It's their oil. It's being drilled offshore. We own it, but we're not charging royalties to the largest American corporations, and that's the real rub of it. These are the most profitable corporations in America. BP is the biggest beneficiary. Exxon, Shell, Conoco, you name it, Chevron, they're all at the trough. Exxon, for example, last year, $383 billion in revenue, and yet we're told they didn't pay any American corporate taxes. They paid it to other countries, but not to the United States. You know, at a time when we cut $1 billion out of Head Start, and then we're going to give $53 billion to the wealthiest corporations of America, take American taxpayer-owned oil? This is insane. Now, it may have made some sense when oil was at $20 a barrel, but when oil is over $80 a barrel and the American consumer is having to pay $3.50 a gallon for gas, is this really the time that we should be giving away $53 billion in oil? No. Let's stop this egregious abuse. We say we're in favor of eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. This is the worst abuse. Let's stop it. Support the gentleman's amendment. Thank you.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Idaho.
I'm tempted to ask the gentleman what part of contract that was signed by the Clinton administration don't you understand, but I would like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Landry.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I rise to strongly oppose the gentleman from Massachusetts amendment. I wish he would understand that we are not drilling right now. That is a problem. Many on the other side of the aisle have been thrilled with the administration's moratorium and praise the Department of Interior and BOM's work, or in true reality, the lack thereof in the deepwater drilling permit process since the BP oil spill. This amendment is insane, Mr. Chairman. The gentleman from Massachusetts must be confiding with the likes of George Soros, who happily watch and encourage the most advanced deepwater drilling rigs leave the Gulf of Mexico and travel to Brazil and Africa. If they are not picking up and leaving the Gulf of Mexico for good, they are filing bankruptcy, like Seahawk Drilling in my district. This week, Seahawk Drilling blamed this demise on an unprecedented decline in the issuance of offshore drilling permits following the Macondo blowout. The chief executive, Randy Stilley, said in a statement, "The decision by regulators," I quote, "to arbitrarily construct unnecessary barriers to obtain permits they have traditionally authorized has had an adverse impact not only on Seahawk but on the sector as a whole." Seahawk's clients were waiting on 11 projects that were in various stages of the permitting processes, none of which had been approved. This just proves this administration and Interior are not serious when they say they have lifted the deepwater drilling moratorium. The minority is claiming this spending bill is a job-killing piece of legislation, but they are just fine with increasing taxes on an industry that is in limbo and employs hundreds of thousands in my district. Louisianians are very hard-working, tough folks. They rarely ask for much. Mr. Chairman, they have been yelling loudly and beating down my door to tell me they are fed up and ready to go back to work. I guarantee you Americans across the nation will begin to yell as well when they're paying more at the gas pump at a time when prices should be falling. The
gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
I yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from New York, the author of this amendment in 2006, Mr. Hinchey.
The gentleman from New York is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you very much. At a time when our country is facing record deficits and the oil industry can't count their money fast enough, oil drillers in the Gulf of Mexico are getting away with highway robbery because of mistakes that were made many years ago. Oil and gas companies are extracting resources from public property without paying royalties, regardless of the price of oil and gas. It's time to fix the problem. The GAO has estimated that not doing so will continue to cost American taxpayers up to $53 billion. These hugely profitable companies are tapping oil and gas reserves that belong to the American people, selling it back to us, and then reaping a massive profit on the backs of the middle class. But they are not paying 1 red cent to the public for the oil and gas they have extracted. They get it for free, and we pay the price. I don't know a single person who would allow an oil or gas company to drill on their private property and not expect to be compensated for the oil extracted from that land. So why should the federal government continue to be taken advantage of by the most profitable industry in United States history? Congress has a chance to correct this injustice. Last year, oil companies earned over $70 billion in profits when oil prices were significantly lower than they are today. With the cost of oil once again approaching $100 a barrel and prices at the pump also rising, the idea that this industry is still getting royalty relief is downright criminal. If we're serious about reining in our deficits, then we should adapt this amendment. It's an important amendment, makes perfect sense, and it is in the best interests of all of the people of this country.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Idaho.
Mr. Chairman, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the gentleman for yielding. I rise in strong opposition to this amendment, and you know what's not being pointed out here is while the gentleman from Massachusetts is talking about companies and royalties, he fails to mention, first of all, that the second largest source of federal revenue, next to income taxes, is royalties that are paid by oil companies. They're paying billions of dollars in royalties. They're hiring tens of thousands, and in some cases probably in the millions, of Americans to work in the energy industry, but that right now is at jeopardy by this administration's policies. In fact, as my other colleague from Louisiana just pointed out, just last week another company filed for bankruptcy because of this administration's policies, shutting off the ability to issue permits and allow people to go back to work. And so what does this amendment do? Well, my colleague talks about royalties. Let's actually read what his amendment does as opposed to what he says about his amendment. The amendment by Mr. Markey says, none of the funds made available by this act may be used to issue any new lease that authorizes production of oil or natural gas under the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act. This is about closing off more domestic sources of energy production at a time when the Middle East has never been more volatile. You might as well just call this the OPEC Protection Amendment, because it ensures that more of these companies, as they're already doing, will be going out of the country. And by the way, oh, is this hypothetical? Of course it's not. I've got a list here of some of the rigs by some of the very companies my colleague talks about that are already leaving. And one of the countries that they've already left to bring their assets to drill because they can't do business in America is Egypt. Two of these billion-dollar assets have actually said it's better to do business in Egypt and drill for energy there than to drill in America because of these radical policies. So I guess my colleague's okay with shutting off more domestic energy, allowing more American companies to go bankrupt. The White House has acknowledged 12,000 Americans have already lost their jobs because of these policies. And then my colleague wants to bring this amendment to shut even more areas of the Outer Continental Shelf off. OPEC might love this amendment, but I think Americans who are going to be paying $4 and $5 gas at the pump this summer don't agree. I oppose and I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Holt.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Chairman, I thank the gentleman from Massachusetts. This is really important. The country needs this money. The country owns this land. The country deserves these royalties. And whether we have not collected these royalties because of a mistake or because of a cozy relationship with the oil companies and the other party, for whatever reason these weren't collected, they should be collected. Royalty relief? No, it's not relief. This is what is supposed to be paid. And I think about all of the things that it should be going for. Portions of the royalties are owed to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. This is what we spoke about yesterday, our nation's most successful open space preservation program that is supposed to take money from the depletion of resources, these oil resources, and apply it to preservation of parks, recreation, and open space. That's just one of the things that should be done with this money that is owed to the American taxpayers. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Idaho.
Just remind the gentleman from New Jersey that it was the Clinton administration that let these leases. I would like to now yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gomer.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
We hear about a cozy relationship, and that's interesting because when you go back and look at the worst oil spill in American history from British Petroleum, BP, and why it took this administration so long to come down on them, we find out that BP was the one oil company that was willing to support and endorse the administration's crap and trade bill. They were ready to come out and make a big deal out of it. And that's why you talk about cozy relationship. Oh, yeah, that's not enough. This administration hired to help oversee these leases the person who was responsible under the Clinton administration for costing this country billions by taking out language that would have gotten us the royalties we should have had. But one of the problems we should never lose sight of, no matter how cozy the relationship was with the Clinton administration and BP and this administration and BP and the 800 hazardous safety violations they overlooked, was that this country's history has been one of integrity. You go back to the War of 1812, banks in England had loaned this country's businesses money. And we had the War of 1812, went on for a couple of years. After that war, we were struggling, but people that owed banks in England paid them anyway. The world took notice and said, this is a country that can be trusted. When they give you their word, it means something. Now this administration and this provision would say, hey, if we make a contract with you and maybe because of this administration's cozy relationship it's too good for you, we'll just come back, cancel the deal, punish you because we were able to lure you into a deal. There's been more damage done to the Gulf states by this president's moratorium. You want to help with jobs, give them their jobs back, open up the provisions, get alternative energy by using the proceeds from the drilling that this group has cut off. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from California, Ms. Capps.
The gentlelady from California is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank my colleague for yielding. I rise in strong support of this straightforward amendment to reduce the deficit and protect taxpayers. It says the nation's biggest oil companies won't be able to buy new leases from the federal government if they want to keep drilling on the public's lands for free. That's all. Now, there's a consensus in this Congress that we need to address the federal deficit. With this amendment, we can. GAO says we're giving $53 billion to the oil companies over the next 25 years if we do not fix the royalty relief law. So let's fix it. Let's make the oil companies simply pay their fair share. Let's stop pouring billions of dollars into their already stuffed oil industry coffers. Isn't it time we give our constituents a break instead of the oil companies? This is about the people we represent. They're taking their savings and they're putting it in their gas tanks and into heating their homes. Big oil doesn't need this profit. Let's end the handouts, reduce the deficit, protect the taxpayer, support the Markey Amendment. And I yield back.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Idaho.
Inform me as to how much time is remaining on each side.
There's 2.5 minutes for the gentleman from Idaho and 2.5 minutes from the gentleman from Massachusetts.
Do I have the right close?
Yes, you do.
I would reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
May I inquire of the chair if the gentleman, Mr. Simpson, is going to be the final speaker on...
We just have one speaker left to close.
And is that the gentleman?
That's the gentleman from Texas.
So he is going to have all of your time to conclude?
Yes.
Thank you.
You will be the next to last speaker.
Okay, good. I appreciate it. Then I yield myself.
The gentleman is recognized.
The remainder of the time. Thank you. This amendment encapsulates this entire week. This week's debate is all about priorities. Will we stand with big oil or with big bird? With the big corporations or with the little guy? Shell oil isn't curing our addiction to oil, but the millions of Americans afflicted with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's need a cure for those diseases, and they need these revenues from the oil companies. Executives from BP won't be shivering in the cold anytime soon, but our nation's poorest families and senior citizens will be. ConocoPhillips doesn't need help feeding their profits, but millions of America's poorest women, infants, and children who don't have enough to eat need help staying fed. Chevron doesn't need special treatment, but special education programs for our neediest students are on the chopping block. ExxonMobil doesn't need a head start on success, but our kids do need the Head Start program to send them on the right educational path. My amendment focuses on just the kind of special interest loophole that should be closed before we open a tax on programs for the poorest Americans, most in need of help. One of the several dozen companies receiving this windfall is BP. Imagine that. BP spilled oil freely into the Gulf of Mexico for nearly 90 days, and yet they are now drilling for free in some of those same waters at the expense of the American taxpayers. Just last week, the former president of Shell Oil, John Hofmeister, was quoted in the National Journal as saying, "In the face of sustained high oil prices, it was not an issue for large companies of needing the subsidies to entice them to looking for and producing more oil." Well, I agree with Mr. Hofmeister. At nearly $90 a barrel, subsidizing oil companies to drill is like subsidizing a bird to fly or a fish to swim. You do not have to do it. Unless this amendment is adopted, ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, ConocoPhillips, and Chevron will continue to hold leases that let them drill on public land without paying taxpayers a single dime. These companies are already getting 100-year-old tax breaks to sell $100 a barrel oil to make $100 billion a year in profits. They don't need a $53 billion windfall courtesy of the American taxpayer and our national debt.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Aye on the Markey Amendment.
The gentleman's time has expired.
This oil company windfall profit.
The gentleman's
for the
time has
American
expired.
people.
The gentleman from Idaho.
I yield the remaining time to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Brady.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for recognizing me. Do you remember Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story? You want to hear what's really behind this debate? In the mid-1990s, worried about how much oil we're importing from the Middle East, and the government encouraged companies to go out deeper into the Gulf to create American-made energy here in the United States. So for 4 years, they signed lease agreements, and companies here in America, they paid millions of dollars for these leases with no knowledge of whether there was oil there or not, or gas. They spent billions of dollars to drill in depths they hadn't before, again, not knowing if they'd hit anything or not. They used American companies to do it on American platforms with American workers, and guess what? It worked. They created American-made oil and natural gas, and they kept it here for us. This outraged the Democrats. How could this happen? And by the way, these companies pay billions of dollars of royalty, not on the price, but on how much they bring out of the ground. It was a win-win situation. Taxpayers win, our jobs win, we get American-made energy. Outraged, they took it to court. 4 times the court said they wanted the American government to break its own contract. They wanted the American government to break its own contract. The court 4 times, including the Supreme Court, said no. Now they've tried to extort the U.S. companies and saying, you must break your contract or we will deny you any chance to do business in the Gulf of Mexico. That's what this amendment's about. It's extortion. They want businesses to break the contract with America that America can't break itself. If the government has power to force you to break the agreement they made with you, how much power will they have over you, over your family, over your business? And by the way, what's wrong with creating good old-fashioned American energy here in this country with our workers, with our companies, with the revenues coming to us and to the local communities, giving us affordable energy? Isn't that what America's all about? Our energy jobs aren't expendable. Stop sending our oil and gas workers to the unemployment line. Let them explore right here in America. Does Hugo Chavez really need a bigger incentive to sell more oil in the United States of America? This amendment needs to go down on this House floor. I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey rise?
Mr. Chairman, I rise in support of the Markey Amendment and ask unanimous consent to insert my statement into the record.
Without objection. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Massachusetts. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chairs, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, on that, I request the yeas and nays. A recorded vote. I request a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Massachusetts will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
409.
The clerk will designate the amendment 409.
Amendment number 409, printed in the congressional record, offered by Mr. Price of Georgia.
Pursuant to the order of the House on February 17, 2011, the gentleman from Georgia and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia.
I thank the chairman, and I think that we've made some significant progress in the area of improving health care in this country, the laws related to health care in this country today in this chamber. This is another portion of an amendment that would address the issue of health care. As a physician and dad, I care greatly about the issue of health care and came to Congress, frankly, as one of the major reasons was to try to fix the health care system and to make it more patient-centered. Over the last 2 years, we've seen a significant affront to our health care system, with costs increasing, destroying jobs, violating principles to a significant degree as it relates to health care. Last year, this Congress made a lot of decisions that gave Washington control over our health care system, and a perfect example of that control is that Obamacare mandates to the companies that provide the health coverage for individuals, helping individuals, how to run their business. Essentially, the federal government is in the business of dictating to private companies what they should do to run their business, what kind of coverage they can provide, what kind of prices they can charge, and what kind of definition of quality care and what meets the definition of essential services for individuals. It really is central planning at its finest, and it is certainly not the government's role in a free market system. The government's already proven that it's not well qualified for mandating and defining what will be counted as quality improvement activity for the purposes of calculating, in this instance, the medical loss ratio. For instance, many of the fraud provisions that are required are excluded from being included in the medical loss ratio. The coding system that is required for health insurers to utilize is not able to be included in the medical loss ratio. So what it does is compromise the opportunity for brokers to provide the best advice to citizens. It makes it so that these folks are actually, they're actually the exchanges, Mr. Chairman, if you think about it. But these folks are going to be pinched and pushed out of their jobs, the ones that are actually helping our citizens to weave their way through the morass of health coverage in this country. The President said famously during this whole debate, if you like what you have, you can keep it. The fact of the matter is, as you know, Mr. Chairman, and so many others know, that simply is not true. These medical loss ratio requirements will, in fact, break that promise to a further degree. So the amendment is very simple. It makes it so that no monies in this bill can be utilized for the provision for enforcing the medical loss ratio, destructive provisions in the area of health care. I urge my colleagues to back the amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. For what purpose does the gentlelady rise?
I rise to claim time in opposition.
The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Tierney.
The gentleman from Massachusetts recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I oppose this amendment for some very good reasons on that. Let me explain what the medical loss ratio is. That is what the people in these private insurance companies call providing health care for the premium dollar you provide. For every time they give you a health service for your premium dollar, they think of it as a medical loss. The medical loss ratio is the amount of your dollar that they actually spend on health care versus CEOs' salaries, bonuses, stock dividends that are out of control, lobbyist costs that they might incur, advertisements, so on down the line. So the purpose of the medical loss ratio provision is, in fact, to make sure that they spend a higher percentage of your premium dollar on actual health care. In 1993, the average used to be about 95 cents of every dollar would be spent by private health insurance companies on health services. Now, however, recent studies indicate that some of these private insurance companies are spending as little as 60 cents of every health care dollar on actual health services, and the rest on lobbyists, probably some of whom are down here arguing to kill this provision, on high CEO salaries and bonuses and advertisement and so on down the line. The MLR, the medical loss ratio provision in this bill, says an insurance company for individuals and small company plans has to spend at least 80 cents of every premium dollar on health care. And if you're in a large company plan, it's 85 cents. What a novel idea. You get some bang for your buck, and the government would actually do something for you for a change, protecting consumer rights and making sure that companies do what they should be doing. This isn't about profits. The companies are extremely profitable, and this is not going to cramp their style. In fact, this is about greed. The profits of the 10 largest for-profit insurance companies in this country show a whopping $9.3 billion in profits for the first 3 quarters of 2010. That's $2.1 billion more than the first nine months of 2009. So they've gone up 41% from 2009. What this is about is them avoiding having to pay premium dollars for health care. Another provision they don't like in this is they're going to have to tell the American public. They're going to have to be transparent in identifying what it is they term as health services. So people would know if they're trying to put lobbyist fees under health services, or excessive bonuses, or CEO salaries, or advertisement, things of that nature, and I don't think they have any will at all to make sure that people understand where their health care premium dollars are going. If you don't have a provision like this, we're going to return to what we were. You take the power away from the consumer, and you put it with the insurance company. So how do they do it? They raise the premiums, or they cut your health care. They take away health care for people that want to get on their parents' plan up to their age of 26 if they're working in a company that doesn't have coverage or they don't have coverage otherwise. They put on caps annually or lifetime caps so you can't get coverage. They rescind your policy exactly when you're in the middle of your cancer or diabetes care. Or they make sure in some other way that you don't get the coverage you ought to have. You know, Wendell Potter, who was a whistleblower, used to be with Cigna, one of the larger insurance companies, made it real clear when he told, in testifying before committees, that in fact this is what companies want to do. They want to keep that medical loss ratio in place where they benefit and the consumer loses.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Chairman, how much time remains on each side?
The gentleman from Georgia has 2.5 minutes. And 2 minutes for the gentlelady from Connecticut.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to yield 2 minutes to an excellent member of our conference, new member, member of the healing profession, nurse from North Carolina, Renee Elmers.
The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's be reminded why we are here today. We are here because the leadership of the 111th Congress couldn't even pass a budget. However, my colleagues across the aisle did manage to pass this monstrosity with a closed rule and no debate. This, my friends, is Obamacare. No one had time to read it, much less understand how it would actually affect small businesses. As a nurse and small business owner, I can tell you that this bill is devastating to health care and the economy. Calling a government takeover of 1/6 of the economy reform over and over and over again does not make it so. Not only should we pass this amendment, we should pass this CR so we can save the American taxpayers from funding this outrageously bad bill. Then we can get to work providing real health care reforms that give the decisions back to the doctors, nurses, and patients, not Washington bureaucrats. Thank you. I yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I would just like to remind the gentlelady, I understand that she was not here, but we did debate health care in this body for approximately 18 months. So there was a very healthy and robust discussion about health care. I would just say for a moment that this amendment is a demonstration, a further demonstration of the majority's special interest priorities as it has to do with insurance companies. It also really demonstrates their hypocrisy on job creation and deficit reduction as well. And with that, let me just, what is the remainder of our time?
The gentlelady from Connecticut has 1.5 minutes.
I yield the balance of our time to Mr. Pallone from New Jersey.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for the balance of time.
Thank you. And I want to follow up on what the gentlewoman from Connecticut said. You know, this is about whose side are you on. If you're with the gentleman from Georgia, you're on the side of the big insurance companies, and you want to make sure that they make bigger profits, they get bigger bonuses, they pass out bigger dividends and more money to their CEOs. Or if you're against this amendment and you want to go with the health care reform bill that we have, you're with the little guy, with the consumer, with the average American. Because right now the law says that consumers have to receive more value for their premium dollar. Insurance companies are required to spend 80 to 85% of premium dollars on medical care and health care quality improvements rather than on the bonuses and the salaries and the dividends for the CEOs and the stockholders. That's what this is all about. You're going to hand control over what happens with the money that you paid in your premium back to the insurance companies so they can do whatever they want with it and make whatever profit they want. And I think it's wrong. One of the major issues that we face this year is affordability and what consumers are getting for their buck, so to speak. And what we did is we made, with the health care reform, health insurance more affordable. And it will become more so as this kicks in further. At the same time, we wanted to make sure that when you spend your premium, you get something back. You get good value. You get good benefits. And that's what we're doing with the health care reform. We're not worried about the insurance companies and whether they get enough profit. They make enough profit. I'm going to give you some examples. Let's use Aetna. Between 2009 and 2010, their profits went up 40%.
Gentleman's
I can use that for every one of the insurance companies.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Georgia.
How much time remains, Mr. Chairman?
Gentleman has 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've heard this is about whose side are you on, and it's about greed. It really is about who decides, Mr. Chairman. In health care, who decides? The folks on the other side of the aisle want the government to decide. They want the government to decide what qualifies as health care and what kind of health care you can get for yourself and for your family and for everybody across this land. On this side of the aisle, we want patients to decide. Patients and families and doctors. That's what this amendment is all about. Support the amendment. I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Georgia. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to.
Recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18. Further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Georgia will be postponed. Purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask to take up Amendment 296.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 296, printed in the congressional record, offered by Mr. McClintock of California.
Pursuant to the order of the House on February 17, 2011, the gentleman from California and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I'd yield myself 90 seconds.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 90 seconds.
Mr. Chairman, on Tuesday, the Appropriations Committee leadership supported my amendment number 297 to cancel $2 million that would be used to consider destroying 4 perfectly good hydroelectric dams on the Klamath River that are generating 155 megawatts of the cleanest and cheapest and most reliable electricity on the planet, enough to power over 150,000 homes. This amendment is the companion measure. It forbids the Bureau to redirect its remaining funds for this purpose. Let me emphasize, Congress has never authorized this study. Congress never authorized the Klamath settlement. The Bureau of Reclamation is moving forward with it anyway. At a time when skyrocketing electricity prices threaten our economy and acute capacity shortages threaten the reliability of our grid, destroying 155 megawatts of clean, cheap, and reliable hydroelectricity is simply insane. We're told this is to save the salmon, but the proposal also includes destroying the Iron Gate fish hatchery that's producing 5 million salmon smolt each year, 17,000 of which return to the Klamath as fully grown adults to spawn. The Bureau is conducting this study without congressional authorization, and the language in this amendment is essential to implement the reduction that the House approved on Tuesday. I thank the Appropriations leadership for their support on Tuesday and ask that the House adopt the implementing language. I'd now like to yield 90 seconds to the gentleman from California, Mr. Herger.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 90 seconds.
Thank you, and I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Chairman, as a staunch supporter of dams, I understand my colleague's position on this issue, and I support this amendment. The constituents I represent overwhelmingly oppose removing functioning hydropower and its associated benefits. I fully share that concern and the disturbing precedent it sets. I think it represents a monumental failure that current federal laws and regulations provide no alternative that will allow these dams to be operated as cost-effectively as they were during the previous license term, or allow the federal government to fully meet the obligations it made to the Klamath Basin agriculture with the development of the Klamath Reclamation Project. As such, this amendment by itself will, unfortunately, not address the underlying issue, the environmental extortion that impacts property owners across the West and the hardworking people who depend on the land for their livelihood. Our laws are grossly out of balance, and I look forward to working with Chairman Hastings and Chairman McClintock on the necessary reforms to prevent this continued abuse and bring greater certainty to the Klamath Basin's agricultural community. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Chairman, I'd now like to yield 90 seconds to the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Walden.
Gentleman will suspend.
Mr. Chairman, I'm claiming time in opposition.
The gentleman from Arizona is recognized. 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the amendment. I just want to make a point. The gentleman is correct. The gentleman from California is correct. We did accept his amendment several days ago that dealt with the reduction of funds. I think it was 1.9 million, but it was not specific to this dam. It was specific to the account. And so this is a very different amendment, and that's why we rise in opposition. And so I would like to yield 2.5 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Thompson.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the gentleman for yielding. Well, what we're hearing on this amendment and the amendment itself is certainly a switch from what we've been hearing over the past couple of days. And I say that because this amendment is a Washington, D.C. solution to a very, very local issue. This amendment would stop a comprehensive local solution to a major and very costly problem in the Klamath River Basin. This effort at the local level is supported by farmers and ranchers, fishermen, conservation groups, the privately owned power company in question, tribes, as well as the states of California and Oregon. And it has a very bipartisan route. It was negotiated under both the Bush administration and the Obama administration. It's a study. It does not, nor is it an agreement to remove any dams. All the local communities in the Klamath Basin, even those who are opposed to dam removal, support the completion of the study, and they're at the table working on this specific issue. Even the California Farm Bureau is in support of completing this study. And it needs to be noted that only Congress can authorize dam removal. This amendment is not wanted by any of the stakeholders: agriculture, conservation, local government, the dam owners, sportsmen and women, nor the tribes. And it will exacerbate the already serious problems we face in the Klamath Basin watershed. I ask my colleagues to please join me in voting against this bad amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now yield 90 seconds to the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Walden.
The gentleman from Oregon is recognized for 90 seconds.
Ask unanimous consent to revise and extend and insert material in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. Chairman, nearly a decade ago, the farmers and families in the Klamath Basin suffered irreparable harm when two government agencies with conflicting demands and questionable data shut off water for irrigated agriculture, threatening a way of life and the economy of the region. Fertile farmlands turned to dust under the summer sun, a wildlife refuge dried up, farmers whose families had tilled the soil and grown crops for generations lost everything and filed for bankruptcy. The stress was too much for some. One died of a heart attack, another took his own life. Out of that aftermath, the House Resources Committee, then chaired by Jim Hansen of Utah and Richard Pombo of California, went to work with me trying to find short-term solutions and work on long-term. Principals in the basin, as you heard, found common ground where they'd been apart, and they reached agreements that they have brought forth, the KBRA and the KHSA. However, it's clear to me that the agreements as written do not have the support of those in charge of the Resources Committee today. The gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock, and the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hastings, have made that clear. There's little point then in spending more of the taxpayers' money, especially during these dire fiscal times, on an effort that's unlikely to move forward in its present form. And given that reality, I will support the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock. The House's decision today, however, will not lessen the threat to irrigated agriculture in the Klamath Basin. It does not add to water storage. It does not provide protection to ratepayers, and it does not resolve the water rights disputes. It does mean, however, the burden of finding a timely and effective solution to the conflicts of the Klamath Basin now resides with the Resources Committee and those who rejected these plans, because there's no escaping the fact that the problems remain, the conflicts grow, and the courts call all the shots absent legislative action.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Arizona.
I would like to yield a minute to the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Rader.
The gentleman from Oregon is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to associate myself with the remarks of the gentleman from California and Arizona. This has been a hard-fought battle in my state. In a prior lifetime, I was a legislator in charge of the appropriations process for my home state of Oregon. And for the 10, 12 years I was in the state legislature, this area, this internecine warfare in the Klamath Basin over the use of the water resources was a really hot topic. As a result, our state and the federal government were spending millions of dollars in lawsuits. This agreement to have a study to bury that hatchet and come to agreement is absolutely critical. We have tribes, ranchers, farmers, local officials have all come together to say, let's solve this problem together at the regional level. We in Washington, D.C. should not be getting involved. This is a long-fought battle that finally has come to some accord. We should let it happen and stay out of Oregon and California's business. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from California.
Does the gentleman have any other speakers in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, who has the right to close?
The gentleman from Arizona.
Oh, I reserve my time.
Gentleman from Arizona.
I reserve my time.
The gentleman reserves.
I do not have any further speakers.
Gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The gentleman from Arizona is disingenuous when he says that we didn't know this was about the Klamath when we adopted the funding reduction on Tuesday. That was the entire context of the debate. I mentioned it over and over again. It's not true that this is somehow a surprise if the gentleman was listening. As to the claim that this is agreement that has been agreed to by all of the political insiders in the area, let me assure the gentleman from California that it is opposed by the overwhelming majority of voters, as tested in several local elections, including the formal opposition to the dam removal by the Siskiyou Board of Supervisors elected by the people of the region.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Arizona.
Mr. Chairman, I was listening. I did understand. Because even though I heard the words, the understanding I had with the chairman of the subcommittee and the reason we supported was that the reduction of funds was to the account, not the specific project. So I did listen. I did understand. And but today we are talking about prohibiting money for the study. And I have to tell you that this agreement is to study the potential removal of 4 privately owned dams, not the agreement to remove dams, and is designed to bring about significant improvements to both environmental conditions and water supply certainty, which need to be confirmed through the study. The studies are scientific. They deal with engineering and economic and environmental-based analysis to determine whether the promise of the agreement will occur. And for that reason, we oppose this amendment. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman rise? The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I just want to say to the gentleman, the Oregon Public Utility Commission has ruled that from the standpoint of the rate-paying public, the settlement agreement is preferable to relicensing under the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, known as FERC, as the agreement caps ratepayer cost at $200 million, whereas fish passage cost, because these dams are old, could exceed $500 million, plus an additional $200 million for O&M. The amendment would force these costs on the rate-paying public without the benefit of accurate benefits and costs. And being from the Northwest, I want you to know that sometimes, and they're just studying this dam removal, but sometimes by taking out dams, you can restore the original habitat and help the salmon recovery, as we're doing on the Elwha Dam project up in Washington State. And the reason we did it, because it was going to cost so much to fix up the dams, that it was actually cheaper to take them out and restore, and this became a major restoration project. So I wouldn't just assume that this is not a positive thing. So I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Oregon. I can't yield 1 minute. I yield to the gentleman from Oregon.
I appreciate the gentleman's courtesy, and he is absolutely correct. What is being dealt with in the Klamath River Basin is unraveling a serious problem, because the federal government has promised more than Mother Nature can deliver. And part of what is being considered, and it is being supported broadly by Native Americans, there are business interests. We've been working with utilities in the North, a broad range of people in the community, and this is something that seriously needs to be studied and done right. There's a very strong likelihood that if it isn't done properly, there may well be something that happens in the Klamath River Basin where circumstances move ahead, and it's not done in the way that I think most people would like. So I appreciate the gentleman speaking out.
And being from Oregon, you realize that it would do a lot, potentially, for salmon restoration.
It is a tremendous opportunity for the Klamath River Basin. It's a tremendous opportunity for the Native Americans, for agriculture, for sports people, and to avoid the litigation and the political squirrel cage that we are in. And if you go down there and visit it, you find, as I know my good friend from California has, it's a tremendous opportunity, and this amendment is really would be a mistake.
Thank you, my friend. Reclaiming my time, I will yield to the gentleman from California to respond.
I thank the gentleman, and I want to agree with you, Mr. Dix, on the salmon implications of not having a solution. This has been an absolute mess for decades, and we've seen the fruits of that disaster bear out in salmon, the salmon industry crashing, and agricultural problems that we have. And for the first time in decades, first time ever, we have had all the stakeholders come together. These are people who you couldn't get in the same town with before, who are sitting around the same table. They're working out solutions. They've come to some agreements, and this study has to be made. And Mr. Dix, you're absolutely right.
And you'd think that the gentleman from California would be interested in letting the local community come to a decision on this, rather than imposing it from Washington, D.C., and overturning what this local group of people have been working on for years. I mean, this is really a bit much. And I yield back the balance of my time and call for a vote.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose is the gentleman from
I believe I can yield the gentleman some time. Strike the last words and yield him some time.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I don't need anywhere close to 5 minutes. I simply want to emphasize that the gentleman is correct, that the local people should decide that issue, and they have in one local election after another. When this has been the deciding question, the voters themselves have said it is insanity at a time when we can't guarantee enough electricity to keep their air conditioners running or the refrigerators running, to tear down the generating capacity equivalent to enough for 150,000 residences, 155 megawatts.
Would the gentleman yield?
Would the gentleman yield?
Would the gentleman yield?
In a moment. The Siskiyou Board of Supervisors elected by the people of the region, has taken a very strong stand in opposition to the removal of the dams. And to the gentleman from California, I too am concerned about the salmon. That's why the Iron Gate Fish Hatchery, which is producing 5 million salmon smolt a year, 17,000 of which return as fully grown salmon to spawn, is so critical, and why they would want to tear that out along with the dams is absolutely beyond me and beyond the people of the region who have voted repeatedly on this issue.
Would the gentleman yield?
Now I will yield.
Would the gentleman yield?
The idea we wanted to wrap this up without too much debate. I just felt, in fairness, that the gentleman deserves some extra time. I don't think we need to prolong this.
Well, if the gentleman would yield, I'd just like to clarify one fact.